We're months away from a rental apocalypse. Let's have a look. Hello everyone, Florian.Heise here, and welcome to another episode of HeiseSays. I have my stein of coffee, and I thought we'd have a look at this article from ABC regarding, well, the coming rental apocalypse or carnage that they expect us to have in spring. Now, more and more we're discussing in other episodes articles where they're looking at just the increase in rental vacancies. First it was the Airbnbs flooding the market. Then it was international students not turning up. Then all of a sudden, CBDs are becoming a renter's market. You can name your price. Landlords are dropping rents by 10%, even more, and they can't attract people in. And yet, the same day, we'll see another piece going, investment's great in Australian property. The yields are so good. These things don't mash up, do they? I guess people need to, they're committed. Probably long term, yields will be fantastic. Just except maybe not for the next couple of years. We'll have to see, guys, because it's all coming to a head in the next few months. In the next few months, if people start can get evicted from their properties, if people, once the job keeper runs out and people realize they've got no savings, they don't have a job to go back to, what's going to happen? We're already seeing now adults are moving back home with their elderly parents to save on money. People are consolidating their living arrangements to save money. So let's have a look at this, everyone. An eviction ban, a mortgage pause for landlords, income support for renters, extraordinary measures by governments and banks have stopped an eviction surge, keeping Australia's 8 million renters in their homes and helping landlords struggling with their loans. Oh, yes, and we also looked at other episodes where there were these landlords who couldn't, rent investors. People so brilliant they were, bloody well dependent on their tenants to completely make the payments on their property and couldn't even come up with another $100 a week to keep it together. And of course, they're calling for bailouts or support from the government. It's what everyone wants these days, isn't it? But the temporary measures masked a growing problem. Many renters are receiving reductions that are really deferrals, accruing thousands of dollars in debts they will never be able to repay. I'm $1,600 in arrears, which is a lot of money when you look at it, said 27-year-old Jay, who asked not to use her surname. I'm willing to pay that money back when I start working. It's just that I expected a bit more compassion from the now while we're in this pandemic and a bit of relief, but I've got none of that. Well, that's reality really, isn't it? The Adelaide resident is a model tenant. Been there 3 years, always paid my rent, always been on time, never missed a payment. Yes, well, see, this is the thing. Your landlord doesn't appreciate what they have. Go somewhere else. I know it's impossible now, but tell them I'll leave once this is over if you don't write that rent off. Right there. She is in a sadly familiar situation. I mean, are they even going to suggest that in this article? We'll see. She is in a sadly familiar situation. When the pandemic crushed her employer, her income dropped to zero, and the government had not yet extended income supports like Job Seeker and Job Keeper. Well, they already had Job Seeker. The doll's always been there, guys. She missed a fortnight's worth of payments, cannot meet the current ones, and is falling into debt. Okay. Now let's take another lesson from this. I know the ABC would dare not suggest this, but our young friend here, Jay, who can afford, expensive tattoos, but can't afford to have some money aside. Okay? Luxury items comes after you have some money stashed aside. This is the problem. This is just another example, sadly, of another person here in Australia that's living hand to mouth, that hasn't put enough aside for a rainy day fund. And I know, guys, I'm starting to realize that more of these things we're seeing in these articles, the long queues at Centrelink, it's just the situation more people find themselves in. Why is this? Why are we seeing this? Why do we have is it just the way the culture is? Is it just that you have, she's 27. She's 27. So in her lived experience, she's never been through a recession. It'll just be stories from older people. I barely remember the last recession. Well, no, I do remember it. I remember as a child, I was quite scared. My father was in the construction game. My mother had a mobile hair care business. Business just shrank, really went slow. My mother, really amped up her mobile hair care to bring money coming in. And I was just reliving yesterday the horrific food my father ate. Because, he was in his childhood in the cellars in Berlin, under the houses when the bombs were dropping, when the Russians invaded. And, I swear the food he cooked for me was the same stuff he got there, just potatoes and everything in a pot. But here's the thing, I think this all comes back to, I'm going off on story time again, it all comes back to a lack of understanding and financial education. I think our education system does not prepare any of us at all. And now you've got a generation that have never encountered a recession in their living memory, and now they're going to, sadly, they're going to turn to the state. They're going to cop it. There is no national database of rental properties, and states and territories have relied on renters who have lost income to negotiate directly with real estate agents or landlords to reduce rents. I mean, just think about this. A national database of rental properties. Do you want the government to set that up, ABC? Do you want the state to be that involved in it? Laws in some states do not allow contracts to be altered to reduce rents, meaning any agreement is necessarily a deferral, not a waiver. Property managers in different states with thousands of properties on their books have told the ABC up to 10% of tenants have requested rent reductions due to a loss of income. The world's going to collapse later this year. This is the thing. When all these government stimulus and props and supports for this economy, for people here like our friend Jay, who don't even have enough put aside to be able to pay their rent for a 2-week period. What's going to happen then, guys? How many of them are rent investors who put everything into an investment property that now they can't rent out? Half of the nation's workforce are on income support through an increased job seeker payment or the job keeper wage subsidy. Both expire after 6 months. In addition, the eviction ban and the Big Four banks' offer to pause mortgage repayments for landlords expire around the end of September 2. Shelter WA Chief Executive Michelle McKenzie dreads to think about what will happen when all those supports end within days of each other. The world is going to collapse. Job Seeker, previously named New Start, or known colloquially as the Dole, why don't they call it the Dole anymore, was effectively doubled through the addition of a pandemic supplement. And I mean, if you're getting that, guys, if you're on this, you're getting the double, stash it aside. Stash it aside. Don't waste it. Save it. Build a reserve so you're not in the situation where this young lady is, where 2 weeks and boom, she starts incurring debt. The extra payment boosted the amount unemployed people receive from $550 per fortnight below the poverty line to $1,100 a fortnight. Here's the thing, there's not been one mention of people having individual agency and having any savings, having an emergency fund. That's not even taught at school. It wasn't taught when I was there. Even basic financial literacy was hardly taught. Ms. McKenzie wants it made permanent, along with increases to Commonwealth rental assistance and investment in social housing. Okay, of course, well, she's an advocate in that industry, so there's a complete bias there. It would stop the shock at the moment, she said. Ms. McKenzie said some of her colleagues in community housing associations who support tenants in government-supplied housing have almost 40% of their clients in arrears. The growing debt balloon in the private market could lead to increased homelessness, she added. It's really just deferring what's a huge problem down the track, she had said. More than half of residents in the Northern Territory rent their homes, the highest percentage in the nation. Darwin Community Legal Service Solicitor Carolyn Diane said the longer the current situation remained, the worse off people would be. Certainly people are going to end up with these big debts, she said. We're worried about people who haven't notified their real estate agent that they're in trouble. A lot of people are stressing about this debt they are going to accrue. Here's the thing. A lot of people have, A lot of people have been put in this situation through no fault of their own. I understand that. But they also, we're seeing more and more, haven't prepared for the potential of this. And here's the question. Now that they've gone through this, do you think their habits will stay the same when the economy starts to recover? When a recession's been declared 2 or 3 years down the track, we're starting to pick up again. Do you think their purchasing behaviors will stay the same? I'm hoping people will step back and go, okay, I'm never going to be in this situation. I'm going to cut right back to the bones. I'll sell all the useless rubbish I've wasted money on. Oh, look, I've ate at home for months. I don't need to go out for every meal. I don't need to get Uber Eats all the time for takeaway. You think I'm just being a bit too hopeful there, guys? Come on, I can be optimistic too. Don't worry. So the spring carnage after a bleak winter. One of the busiest property managers in Sydney, Edwin Morton, is concerned about a grim springtime. The whole world is starting to ask the question about September and October. That may be when real carnage hits, the joint managing director of Morton Real Estate said. The changes made rapidly in the end of March, an eviction ban, mortgage pause and income support for renters took the heat out of the situation. But he said they had not solved the problem. Banks can't keep doing it forever, he added. But it may be a question of how everyone can transition out of this with a gradual period of JobKeeper and loans. But Mr. Morton and his landlords are not panicking just yet. In the client base, there's definitely tension, but there's also circumspect. Most say, let's just get to the end of the year and have a look at it, he added. So government is wearing rose-covered glasses. Well, yeah, governments are. They have to. They have to. It's an element of positive speak. They need to speak up the economy. But the problem is, then they can't give people a dose of reality, so they won't prepare. And they'll just... Do you think people are going to learn from this? Or they'll just expect the government to bail them out all the time? Landlords have been removed from the discussion, said Real Estate Institute New South Wales Chief Executive Tim McKibben, meaning the issue has been kicked down the road but not solved. Financial difficulties of the tenants, which are real and which need to be addressed, let there be no mistake about that, have been passed in part or in totality across to the landlords, he said. That doesn't get rid of it, it exacerbates the difficulties the landlord is having. Most landlords are small investors with only 1 or 2 properties. If they are among the 1.3 million investors who use negative gearing, they were already losing money on the properties before the crisis, although many would do this deliberately because it reduces their taxable income. I thought that was the whole point, yes. Mr. McKibben lamented the narrow view used to solve the immediate crisis that has led to the creation of a rent debt bomb primed to go off at the end of September, when much of the government and bank support is scheduled to suddenly end. Can you see people falling into the trap of the payday lenders and all that crowd and that mob when this happens? Are we going to start seeing being able to afterpay rent? If anyone sees a real estate or, afterpay your rent, please send me a picture. It's only a matter of time. It's only a matter of time. Pay your weekly rent in 4 easy repayments. Bloody hell. I hope I'm kidding here, guys. I'm kidding. I hope it doesn't happen, but I'm scared it will. We have to consider where the tenant is going to be and what sort of debt has been accumulated, he said. It's going to be difficult in a lot of cases, not all cases, but a lot, for the tenant to be able to start a repayment program for the rent that has been deferred. And I don't think that particular problem, which is going to be surfacing in 4.5 months' time, has been given due consideration. New figures from the banking industry's peak body show that payments for more than 1 in 14 mortgages have been deferred. The Australian Banking Association revealed repayments on 429,000 mortgages worth $153 billion, and that's now up to $200 billion, have been put on hold so far. There's an assumption that everyone is going to get their jobs back and that tenants can start a repayment program of whatever the tenant can afford over the next period of months following that, and everything will go back to normal, he said. I think that is wearing rose-colored glasses. Exactly, I would have to agree with that. It just seems ludicrous. It's like people are putting their heads in the sand. Emma Allen helps clients buy property to then rent. The director of active property investing He said it is in the best interests of landlords to keep their tenants, but that non-payment or reduced rent cannot go on forever. We have landlords with the ability to be flexible on their rents, but we also have landlords that just won't survive it, she observed. There's only so many months that landlords can survive without having the full rent in place. Beyond mortgages, landlords must still pay council rates, insurance, strata fees, and land tax, as well as maintaining the properties. In one case, the tenant can lose 20% of her income, but little did she know that she still earned more than the landlord, so it's not always as it seems. Well, there you go. That's a whole lot of people are getting into these investments that don't have any buffer as well. Pay rent or eat. Not-for-profit organisation SYC helps tens of thousands of people like Jay every year with housing, education and employment issues. Chief Executive Paul Eddington sees dangers ahead if the rent debit problem is not unwound. The challenge with kicking the can down the road is that eventually you catch up to it, he said. Many of the people his organisation assists are struggling with the accrued debt combined with unemployment and underemployment as well. It gets overwhelming. It can have a lifetime effect, he said. He's right there, it can. It can. And underemployment, that's the big issue. Even when people all go back to their jobs, a lot of them are going to be underemployed. We see this in disadvantaged communities all the time. People on low or limited incomes fall into debt. They then start to accrue penalties and interest on top of those debts. After a while, the non-payments of those debts can even start to be criminalized as courts start ordering people to pay, and they still can't pay. Jay does not want it to get to that. You know, when the governments are saying, we'll protect tenants, well, I don't really think that's how it's gone, she said. I'm not even sleeping, worrying about rent, and I know I'm not the only one. You've got a choice, pay rent or eat, and I don't really think that's fair. Well, she's learning a lesson that life isn't fair. At 27. That just shows you how unprepared this generation is. At this stage, Jay cannot make her current commitments, much less make a dent in her growing and looming debt. The thought of going to get another loan to pay those arrears scares me, she said, her voice faltering. But I can't do that. I'm worrying about where this money is going to come from. Well, so no mention in this article at all that people are not prepared for these situations. I mean, it's the ABC. It's the world we live in now. It's the world we live in. People might say I'm being too harsh to bring that up, but it's something that we need to be aware of. It's a lesson that we need to learn. I hope she's going to learn from this. I hope she is. The biggest problem is, one way of paying off debt right now is selling stuff. And it's going to be harder now, although hopefully now, sell all the bits and pieces you have inside. Sell those computers, sell that iPad, sell the television, sell the Game Boys, the Xboxes. Use that to attack your debt. Don't get back into it again. Save money. Have something stashed aside. But that's not fun, Florian. No. We need to spend. Well, there you have it, guys. It's going to be interesting in a few months. What do you think this will do to property prices if we start seeing all these support mechanisms being removed? What do you think the calls will be from the masses for government intervention into the market? Do you think we'll see more? Definitely going to be an interesting year. As always, let me know your thoughts and opinions in the comments below. Please like, share, and subscribe to the channel. If you're a fan and you want to support us, there are a few ways you can. You can join the channel on YouTube or Patreon. You can support us via our affiliate links at Amazon, eBay, Independent Reserve, or Kucoin. You can use Gold Pass from the Perth Mint. You can buy a merch from HeiseSays, or you can support us via PayPal. Take care, everyone. I'll see you next time.